Will you start just like with who you are and where you're from?
Sure. Bill Haltman, the Executive Director of Mercy Retirement and Care.
Great. I was supposed to meet you today. I'm glad you're here.
I'm Walt McCreary. I've got a company that develops electronics as consulting.
Okay.
Stanley Healthcare. My name is Audie Sapowski.
Audie?
Audie.
Okay. Greg?
And I'm Greg Pierce with the Episcopal Community Services. I'm the operations officer.
Strong man from Our Lady of Fatima.
Oh, you're from Our Lady of Fatima Villa. You're kind of new there, right? Hi.
Karen Burns. I'm from HQ Labs.
Okay.
Gary Timmers, I'm with Salient Networks.
And Dwayne, I know you. How are you? Dwayne's from the Samarkand.
Right.
And you're Steve, right?
I'm Steve Deeger, Director of Information Technology at Northern California Coastal Treatment Services.
It's nice to see you again. Hi, Marisol.
Hello, Maricela Mountain Leading Age, California.
Ebony Smith, Associate Director of Resident Services with Resources for Community Development.
Where are you located?
Berkeley.
Okay.
Berkeley, California.
Donnie Friday, I'm the IT Manager for Christian Care Communities in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Hi.
Kevin Haberman, Marys Woods, Portland, Oregon.
Jason LaRose with Powder Woods, Stockton, California.
Hi.
It's been a while back.
We're going to be spending some
Yes,
time
very
at your
soon.
place starting very soon. Steve?
Steve Eichen, ARS.
Okay, thanks a lot. That just kind of helps me figure out how we're going to take this, although we do have slides. Dr. Stinson? Ben?
Oh.
I did it. They didn't say it, I said it for them. Just in the essence of time. So we only have about 30 minutes until Dr. Stinson is going to jump in. I want to introduce what is your official title?
As we see it here, it's that's not it actually. It's the Community Technology Services Director. So everybody knows that in business you've got email and file shares and all the rest of that. My role at American Baptist Homes of the West in the IT department is figuring out what our strategies and our goals are for all the technologies and services that we have because we have residents. So everybody here knows that technology is a challenge for every company, but especially for us when we think about how are we going to care for our seniors and how are we going to provide them the best services.
So we're going to run through an actual case study of an implementation that Brett and I worked on together with Gary from Salient Networks, and we want it to be interactive, so please ask questions along the way. And Brett, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you after I do this slide. Okay, so just so everybody knows what we're talking about, we're not talking about traditional nurse call. You know, you push a button and something rings and makes a noise and lights a light. We're talking about situational awareness. That's a term that originated in the military, and we believe that every community and every resident should have awareness of the situations that are going on campus. So it includes all of these things that you can see on this slide, but I just wanted to make that definition. That's what situational awareness is in the context that we're talking about it. So whether that's a door opening or the walk-in's getting too hot and you're going to have to throw away food, or a senior's in duress, any of those kinds of things and a whole lot more can be monitored, and you can find out about them in real time on the kinds of devices that your people are carrying wherever they are. Up to you.
So, CLE Networks and Status Solutions were on a very short list of products that we looked at when we were considering what we were going to put in at the terraces of Salem King Gardens. Now, this community is in Fresno, California, and the product that we had there was an old Avalon system. American Baptist Homes of the West has been around since 1949, and what we all know is that what a senior wanted, what an elder wanted in the 1940s is not what an elder wants today. They don't want a studio, they don't want a shared bathroom, they want 3 or 4 bedrooms and their own laundry facility in their own apartment. So when we were redeveloping this property, we took a look at all the things that we had, the technologies that were in the industry. Just prior to the redevelopment starting, we had gone from 11 CCRCs with 8 different nurse call systems or emergency response systems. And we standardized on a product that a company had recently purchased, and we were sold on the idea that every truck that they had rolling on the road was going to support that product. What we found after we implemented 4 of those at our sites was that that wasn't the case. And we were sold, we were misled a bit. My boss, Joe Girardi, our CIO, stopped that implementation, that rollout, and we had to take a look at what else could we do, what new product could we put in that would be best for our residents and be best for the IT department. So what we wanted was an easy-to-use system, something that didn't require a technologist to be working on every day and reprogramming when we had a resident move in or move out. We wanted strong support, so as I said, we got that bad flavor from that other large company. And we wanted some redundancy, so we didn't want a single point failure along the way. The more efficient business process speaks to the fact that we had our residents going out every morning between 8 and 9 a.m. They had to leave their apartment, walk outside, and turn a tag outside their door, physically themselves. And then we spent a good portion of the morning with a security guard or a wellness nurse walking around and checking off a list to see whether or not the person was awake or moving around to turn that tag. We also wanted alert customization. At that time, the product that we were using was sending an alert to everybody that carried a pager. It wasn't specific groups for independent living or assisted living or skilled nursing. We also wanted mobile duress with good location. The previous system, as we said, associated a resident who had pressed their pendant with their apartment. No matter where they were on the campus, the caregiver went to the apartment first to find them. And as we know, our residents don't just sit in their apartment and wait for help to come. The last part was integration. We wanted to do something more, as Cindy mentioned, situational awareness. We didn't want it to be focused just on emergency response. We wanted to take a look at and see what we could do throughout the campus to get a single system that would give us all the alerting. Some communities have a pager for independent living, a pager for the wellness staff, a pager for the facilities department, a pager for the administration staff. And so we got to the point of focusing on that one paging system. Pagers are pretty reliable when it comes to our small communities. But we wanted to make sure that everybody was getting the right message at the right time and not having a Batman belt full of tools and alerting systems. So,
Any questions about that, or are there things that other people are looking for when they're going out and trying to find a solution? Just in the effort to keep this interactive. Yes, Steve?
Anything about with residents going off campus, like a trip to Muir Woods, where you might be able to locate them if they wander off?
when we took a look at the products that were on the market at the time, this was about 4.5 years ago, that was not something that we found would be beneficial to us. Yes, it can be done, and I believe it could be done at the time, but we found that that was more investment than we were able to make and willing to make at the time. Because most of ABHOW services are the CCRC inside the walls and not the CCRC outside the walls and into home health and trips to the store.
But Steve, the manufacturers are making developments to combine GPS with location information on a campus. The real challenge is that if it's GPS and you are down in the basement or residents are over in the storage areas, you are not going to get any information about where they are if it's strictly a GPS system. But I would say look in the next year or so for more to be integrated into a single device.
Again, that was 4 years ago, so this is what we have. Now, this is something that, this diagram, although we focus specifically on the Sarah product because it's easy to see, this is what my boss lovingly refers to as the goes intas and goes outs. So a system that can handle all of the input from door alarms, pendants, pull cords, any number of systems, and be chewed up by the server in the middle, the special sauce and the way that the system takes all the alerts and then figures out who it needs to go to. And then it goes out as are all the alerts on the other side. That could be phone calls, that could be pages, that could be messages to an iPad or an iPhone. So again, this was not specifically what we were looking at, what I want to sell you today, because I'm not here to sell you. But we wanted to take a look again at getting away from the back belt of communication devices to getting the right message to the right person at the right time.
Brett, will you talk about, so we see other alarm systems, sensors, mobile device, door alarms, really anything that has a contact.
Sure.
But in the other alarm systems piece, will you just highlight the sniff
Absolutely.
center kind of?
One of the things that we've done, as I said, in redeveloping our properties, we're looking at trying to get as many systems to integrate as we can. As a CCRC, we have independent living, assisted living, a specific assisted living for memory support in most of our campuses, as well as our skilled nursing. And what we found was, especially here in California, the skilled nursing has to be a wired system. But we didn't want to have a separate server, computer, technology piece, alerting to just that staff when we could send notifications to other staff around the campus. So one of the things that we like about the SARA system is that it can receive information from other systems. We're standardizing on the intelligence system, which is now produced by ASCOM. That system doesn't require a special reporting server or other notifications because all of its information feed into the SARA system, and then SARA passes the information to the people that need to get it. The other piece is door alarms. With memory support, we face the ever ongoing challenge of elopement and wander management. And so the door alarms and the wander piece, we use Stanley's Roam Alert product. In our assisted living memory support, but that system also feeds all of its information into SARA as well. So again, we're not having that group of assisted living nurses on a separate system and a separate way of communicating than the rest of our staff. So one of the things that we need to talk about today, we're going to talk about today, is what is it that we looked at when we looked for the successful outcome. So the first thing is picking the right partner in the solution. Again, this was 4 years ago. There were some things on the horizon. There were some technologies, networking. There's a couple different flavors of that. There's Zigbee, there's EchoStream, there's IP networking. And what we wanted was a product that was mature, was not on the leading edge, not on the bleeding edge, and something that we already had on our campus. The next part was the advanced software, and that's the special sauce that I speak about with SARA. What I found in doing the next part, the due diligence, in talking to the vendors, was that many of the things that the SARA product was able to produce at that time 4 years ago were things that were on other vendors' roadmaps, but that were not actually produced yet. So there are things now that are in place with other vendors that SARA had a few years ago, and now SARA and Status Solutions is still a few steps ahead. The due diligence, we did take a look at all the products that we had in-house already. We took another look at that vendor that we standardized on prior to SARA, and we compared all of those apples to apples instead of in a scientific way, looking at what was available in the industry. The planning from beginning to end, specifically at San Joaquin Gardens, the staff was starting to undergo the transition, and so were the residents of our redevelopment. And when I say redevelopment, we have 25 acres. And less than half of that has been touched by the redevelopment. It was supposed to be a 5-year plan, we're now on Plan 8, or Year 8, rather. And those residents are still going through the construction and redevelopment. The implementation of SARA started before most of that happened, but we knew that we needed to get the product in before, because we were going to be tearing up roads and buildings and knocking down electricity. The communication plan was essential. We had to let our residents know and the staff know what was going to happen, what was going to come in, and the Salient group was able to do that well in advance. We had meetings 2 months out, 1 month out, 2 weeks out, to make sure that the residents and the staff on an ongoing basis were told what we were doing and when we were going to do it. Also providing them the products in hand so that they could start getting familiar with it, because the form factor of the devices was different than what we already had in-house. The training plan, cutover plan, all of those things were produced. The documentation was produced, and we also gave it to the right people so they would have it before everything happened.
And I want to jump in there.
Sure.
That was such a key piece of what made that installation go so smoothly, is that you all participated at such a high level with the project management team from Salient to make sure that staff knew what was coming. We had staff buy-in, we had resident buy-in. So it just was accepted that it was a good thing. And when we go to do a project and we're talking to people just at this level and they decide to do an implementation and no one is involved at the lower levels, it's much more difficult to get a great outcome. So that's kudos to your team and the folks at San Joaquin Gardens.
That leads us to identifying the super user, making sure that you have someone on site who gets training beforehand and is the ongoing resident specialist, staff specialist, the person that you have, that you identify as the person who wants to be involved. Not the one who's naysaying the entire project, but who can be the cheerleader when you're looking at a new product that you're giving to your residents. As we know, residents don't like change. I don't know too many staff folks that like change either. So you want to find the one that does in that case. Unlimited training. We all have transitions. We all have staff that come and go. And identifying the people who you think are going to stay, and you give them all the training that you need, and 2 months later they've got all this new training, and oops, off they go to a competitor or to another industry. What we found was that the training that was offered with the product was ongoing, and as it says, unlimited. So if we had 2 new people this week, they call in, they do a webinar, they have an opportunity to learn the new product. 2 months later, we have somebody else new come in. There wasn't an ongoing billing for, oh, sorry, we have to charge you for another 8 hours of training. Whoops, sorry, that's another 6 hours of training, or golly, you shouldn't have let that person leave. The last part is important because it speaks to budgeting. We have, as I said, communities in all states of disarray at this point. We're redeveloping many of our communities. What we find is that with a nurse call system, an emergency call system, we felt that it had to be done from end to end, all at once. The idea that, well, we're going to put in the pull cord in this person's bedroom or bathroom when we redevelop that townhome, but we're not going to do anything else. We're just going to pay for that little piece. It doesn't work so well. There are pieces that you have to do. Complete, and so there are challenges to it. It can be done, but when looking at budgeting, we encourage our CFO to find up the funds all at once rather than doing it piecemeal.
Although, like, Paul, for you guys, we lit up skilled nursing and that area is done. It doesn't impact anything that's going on with the various nurse call systems that you guys have in other places. And Dwayne, at Samarkand, you have 4 or 5 different call systems in the different areas. for ABHOW, what we found is putting a coverage everywhere on campus, because an independent living resident could be in duress anywhere on campus, that part was important to do and do well, so that the experience and the outcome for the resident would be the best.
Absolutely. We have one community right now that the reason we put the SARA system in was for the acknowledgements. It's the seed to the rest of the community. At that community, we're only doing the memory support residents with a roam alert. Again, roam alert ties back to SARA. That allows the staff there to get used to the system, and as we move forward, just roll out the rest of the pieces to the rest of assisted living and independent living. So, our outcome, the installation staff spent 2 weeks on site. This was going door to door, taking out the old system, putting the new system in, and working with each resident so that they were comfortable with what the new pendant felt like, how it worked, what it looked like. The alerts going to the right people at the right time. We talked about that earlier. The focus was getting away from all the communication devices and getting one device. We also had the opportunity to escalate with this. We can go from a pager for a set of nurses to pagers for 2 sets of nurses to text to voice with a phone call to the director of assisted living, and then maybe at the same time an email to our executive director. We got buy-in from the site staff and residents. Again, that was through that communication. People like it, people promote it, and we've got some residents who are now spearheading communication with new residents as they move in, how it works, how confident they are, what experiences they've had with, yes, I actually used it, I fell down by the gazebo and broke my hip and couldn't move, and they found me in 3 minutes. So that's a lot better than 10 or 15 minutes that it would have taken to find that they weren't in their apartment and call for the rest of the search. We do have campus coverage with the location, and that has to do with the way that SARA sets up not only the technology with the location around the specific devices, but when a page is sent, it lists the triangulation to the caregiver so that they can go find the person on campus.
Can I just say, it's not triangulation?
Yes. It's the word I use.
So that's a kind of a key differentiator. Triangulation means you're taking off of 3 different repeaters and getting an approximate location. With SPS, we create a vector map that's populated with both physical devices, so that can be the pull cord on the wall, it can be the repeater, it can be the smoke detector, it can be the door transmitter or the push button or the motion sensor. All of those things help populate more granularity in the vector map, so that when someone presses their device, we can not only feed off of those, but we can feed off of virtual points of interest. So Paul, for example, in your health center, not only do we have the few devices that are fixed, which are the fall pads that are connected to beds, but we've also gone around and created more virtual points of interest in the chapel and in different locations, so that when somebody's out in their wheelchair and they get out of their chair, we can tell staff where that person is. So it's a little different from triangulation, yeah.
We looked at some solutions a couple of years ago, and one of the issues we came up with is the sensors in the ceiling will bleed over multiple floors, so you know where that person is.
Yeah.
They may be on the 2nd floor or the 3rd floor in that same area.
So what we do have a way that we fix that in the software. And basically, what we might do is relocation from the pull cord and not relocation from a wireless smoke, because that smoke is going to be closer to where the person is upstairs who's fallen, because they're going to be on the floor. And when we set those virtual points of interest, we set them low. So it's a spherical vector map, and it will take that. We have really solved that problem. And Greg, at the Canterbury, they haven't had any issues with bleed over in terms of location. I think it's been really, really, really accurate for them. Is that?
I've not heard any complaints.
Okay, well, you would if they were. Yeah, Paul. Oh, 5 minutes, okay.
I was just gonna say, you know, it's really important when you're doing the design that you do a really thorough site survey, and then what we do is we do fine tuning with the virtual points of interest. So what Cindy's talking about, if you're getting conflicting data in a certain area, clear it up. We change the density in the area to make it more accurate. And so then the signal strength is better and it gives you more accurate information.
With the previous solution, before we went with this, we had an issue in our Oakland site where not only did we have problems with floors, but even between buildings because they were next to each other, and that bleed over happened saying, well, sorry, they're in building A when they're actually on the 13th floor of building B. Definitely a problem, and again, we found that the virtual points of interest helped with that, helped clear that up quite a bit. And reporting tools, with that, we've got the right reports in the right hands. The staff doesn't have to walk over to that computer and pull up the report and print out the report. We have timed reports, emailed reports, reports for just the response time in assisted living, and it only goes to the charge nurse, and it only goes to, I'm sure who the reports go to. We have
I can tell you.
200 reports or something like that, which go to different individuals, and it's all without human interaction. It's set up once, and then it happens.
Just goes in email and it's a PDF, so staff has no excuse to not use that data that they're getting out of the system.
And the last bit is the follow-on optimization. As Gary mentioned, sometimes we have to change that density. They have to. I don't have to do anything with it, which is one of the things I really like about this. In previous systems, it was always the IT person who was called to say, we've got a low battery, we can't find such and such a device. We've got it to the point where the nursing staff actually, when people get admitted, they're the ones programming the new tenant or moving people from room to room. It's no longer an IT function. But the follow-on optimization was optimization of the signals, optimization of the hardware, as well as working with the staff to understand how the new system is changing their processes and how that will help them in the future get different alerts or too many alerts or less alerts. And we get it optimized so that